going to talk about using the Blender interface. What you see is what you start off with. You've got your object, you've got your camera, and you've got your lamp. If you look above that, you've got your menu bar. This is default. You can't really change it. You've got the name of the object that's selected. For instance, we've got the lamp selected. If you change it, you've got the cube. You change it, you've got the camera. It tells you how much memory is being used by each object. Click this, it's 881. Click the lamp, it's 895 megabytes. Next to that, it tells you how many lamps are in the scene, how many objects are in the scene, which happens to be 3 objects total: camera, light, square, and 1 object is selected. If you hold down Shift and you select the different objects, you will notice that it adds the objects to the selection, and therefore we've selected 3 objects out of 3 objects in the scene. Then it tells you how many edges, how many faces, and how many vertices are within the scene. Since the square is the only real object in the scene, that's how many is there. Then it also tells you the version of Blender you're rendering. The button next to it allows you to jump between the Blender render, the Blender game, and the Cycles render, which you don't have to worry about. Next to that, this allows you to edit different scenes. Next to that is your template viewer. So if you wanted to do animation, you click animation. This brings up default animation panels and views. If you wanted to do UV editing, this allows you to brings up the standard UV editing views. We're going to go back to default. This is what default looks like. Of course, you got your menu, you got your help, your window, your render, your add, and of course your file. And then of course you've got your edit viewer. This allows you to see like information, 3D view, text editor, UV image editor, all that fun stuff. Now below that you have the toolbar. This is turned on and off by the letter T as in toy. The toolbar has to do with everything that deals with the object that's selected. So if you wanted to translate it or transform, you press that button and you can move your object around. If you don't like it, you can press Control Z. You can rotate, scale, all that fun stuff. There's also, you got smooth shading, you've got flat shading. You've got your keyframes, motion paths, repeat, grease pencil. Of course, you've got other options underneath that. Underneath that, you've got this toolbar here. Of course, you've got your editor again. Let's put the info. There we go. And if you click that, yeah. So you got your editor. Now, when you've got your menu, you got your view, your select, your object. This is your view shading. View shading is also called the draw mode. There's different hotkeys for each area that you go into. Right now we're in the object mode. You can go to edit mode. This allows you to duplicate and change how the vertices, faces, or edges are. You also have your sculpt mode, which from what I understand is kind of like ZBrush. You can sculpt your scene or your object out. You've got your vertex paint, which allows you to paint vertices and make it look all pretty if you wanted to. That sort of thing. Okay, and then of course you've got your texture paint and weight paint. I'm not quite sure what they are, but I'll find out later on. So we're going to go back to object mode, and then next to that you've got your shade objects. This has how you see if you want to be in wireframe or if you want to be solid or textured. I'm going to go back to solid. Next to that is your pivot center. This allows you to pivot, like rotate from a certain point. If you had multiple objects in a scene, this allows you to decide if you want to do a middle point between all the objects or if you want each object to have its individual origin or not. Next to that, you've got your 3D manipulator widget. This little button turns it on and off. As you can see by the arrows, it's on. When it's turned off, there's nothing there. When you turn on, the first thing you have is translate. You can also, when you hover over it, it also says you can shift click for multiple modes, so don't hesitate to play around with that. Translate allows you to move the object up, down, sideways. Also, you will notice that it translate up here, which you can use later. You can also have the rotate option. If you press R, this allows you to rotate the object without having to like click and drag it along that little key. There's also the scale. If you press S, this scales the object entirely. You can also scale it based upon the vertices as well. And then next to that, this allows you to tell if you want it to be global or local or all that stuff. And then next to that, you have the layers tab. We're on layer 1. As you can see, there's a circle or square in the first one. You click on this, we're in layer 2, and there's nothing there. Next to that, we've got buttons that don't necessarily need and I don't really know much information about yet. But I do know that this little button right here allows you to render the object. So if you press that, this is the rendered picture that you see. And then in order to simplify this scene for modeling, you'll right click this little menu here. You go maximize area, and there you go. You've got a nice perfect scene in order to, or nice perfect template in order to do your modeling in. Also, if you press N, you can bring up your properties toolbar. This allows you to edit the XYZ attributes or properties to each object that's in there. It also has its other properties that you get to play around with when you feel like it. And for the most part, that's it. And if you ever want to go back to the original view, you can always go right click the little area there, do tile area, and it'll bring up whatever scene you had, whatever template you had up last. So it's nice and easy in case you get lost. By the way, if you happen to not know which one's your XYZ axis in this bottom corner, this will always be there. This will tell you what color is your X, Y, and Z. It will also tell you what you've highlighted. So right now, or what you've selected. So right now I have the cube selected. Now I have the camera selected. And now the lamp. And that's pretty much all that we're going to talk about today. I'll see you guys next time.